Hello techies, I'm Divya here. On behalf of CyberBrainer, don't you think the world of tech is evolving faster than ever? Now is the perfect time to dive in and build the skills that will take you places. With CyberBrainer, we are putting you in the driver's seat of your own future. We at CyberBrainer don't just teach your interest. We believe that knowledge is power, but it's applied knowledge that truly sets you apart. Whether you're diving into data science, mastering artificial intelligence, or exploring the world of cybersecurity, our courses are designed to give you the skills that matter. So let's jump into the session and make the future yours today. Thank you.
Always started with compensation last week. We just like kind of a head start, a kickstarter to what compensation is. Starting today, we will be mostly doing hands-on, like I said in the last week. And I did check with the support team on. I think there was a question asked about the content that is on the portal, the access that you have. I checked with the support team and did not get a clear answer yet. All I can do is wait to get a better answer because it was not clear whether that is updated, whether that's old information. When that is specific to different for each trainer. I don't know how that works yet. I'm continuing to follow up with them, and as soon as I have an answer, I'll share that with you. Coming back to the compensation topic, we discussed what compensation is. We went through a few of the initial slides. What compensation is in Workday. And then this is what the visual is, which everyone has to focus on and keep by your side all the time whenever there's a compensation discussion. And then we talked about eligibility rules, what those are and how to create those. Let's start with our first activity, create compensation eligibility rules. Now, before we do that, I would like to share a particular visual with you guys, which is I've designed this matrix of compensation, which we will be using as a reference to our organization. Now over here on the left, you would see a box which consists information about grade and grade profiles. Now, if you guys recall what we understood from our previous session on competition grades, provide you with the reference ranges. It's like what's the minimum and the maximum for that particular role or for that particular job or for that particular work. Grade profiles allows for localization. Localization means going regional, going local. And then over to you will see this box on the upper side for competition plans. We will be creating a salary plan, a car allowance plan. We will be creating these eligibility logics as well and we'll be using these values. This is an extra part. If anyone wants to explore more, they can use this as well. But after creating the top one. And then once we create the grades, once we create the plans, and then we're gonna pull all of them together in this particular section. Let me just update a couple things here. Since we're using the new flex plan, let me update that. All flex plan was a previous organization or Zipro was a previous organization who was using. Now that we are working with the organization in flex plan, we're gonna continue to work on that. This is a screenshot, or maybe if you guys want to take a screen grab of this, I'll leave that to you. But this is the reference made compensation matrix that we will be using, and we will be designing exactly the same in the tenant. Now, as part of the activity 1, we have create compensation eligibility rules. Now, To create that, we first need to understand what compensation eligibility rules are. To understand, we first need to understand what eligibility rules are, and to understand that we need to understand what rules are. Let's go into the tenant and I'll just log in. A rule by the name itself is nothing but a restriction or limitation. Why do we have rules? Rules define a particular criteria. That criteria is nothing but your eligibility criteria. Whether an employer will be eligible for a particular role or not will be defined by the eligibility criteria. And whether an employer will be eligible for a particular compensation rule, that will be defined by your compensation eligibility rules. All of these terms work together. Now, but as a basic understanding of a rule is nothing but a set of instructions. Those instructions are nothing but limitations or restrictions. That if A is equal to B, then only this particular action should trigger. It's a rule. For that action to be triggered or for that employer to be eligible, they have to meet the criteria for that rule. That is what a rule is. Now, combining that with eligibility is, if an employer is eligible for that, they have to meet that rule. And the same statement will also work if you combine with compensation. If the employer is eligible for that compensation, they have to be meeting the criteria for that compensation eligibility rules. Within Workday, all these conditions, all these rules are nothing but your if-else logics. If this, then do this, or this, then do this. If this, then do this. If that, then do this. Those conditions can very much interchangeably be said as rules. Rules can very much interchangeably be said as conditions. But in the back end, everything is conditions or rules. But when it comes to compensation, Workday has defined a different category of these rules. Though they are designed the same way, they work the same way. It's just the naming and the categorization. Because Workday wants that. Any eligibility rule, or I'll correct my statement, any compensation eligibility rule that you create in the system will and only be used in your compensation module and nowhere else. I can create standard conditions as well, which can be used everywhere within the system in any module. But Workday wants that you create compensation-specific eligibility logics and use it only in compensation. Which in a way is a much better thing because you don't have to mix it up with other condition logics. Compensation eligibility rules are created using fields which are categorized as compensation. We'll see that in a minute what that means. And same way, Workday also has this category for benefits eligibility rules. If you're using Workday benefits and you want someone to be eligible for a particular benefit, you create an eligibility logic or eligibility rule, which is called as benefit eligibility rule. And in that also it will be specific to the benefits module. I cannot use those in compensation, or I cannot use compensation eligibility rules in my benefit eligibility rules. A good way of differentiating between compensation eligibility rules and any other rule outside the system. With that, let's create one of them. Task is very simple. Create an eligibility rule. You would see benefit eligibility rule. You can create compensation. There's other types of eligibility rules as well. Now designing the fields whether I'm creating a compensation eligibility rule or any other type of rules in the field. Same rules, same concept. As I was saying, that creation of these rules are relatively simple. What takes time and understanding is what goes here. Now let me give you a simple example of A is equal to B all. Whenever you create a eligibility logic or any condition whatsoever, whether it's compensation, benefits, or a generic HCM condition to be used anywhere in the system, you will see the same structure. We will have to enter a source field or a condition rule. You will have to enter a relational operator. There will be a comparison type. There will be a comparison value. Not only here, even in reports. Once we will start with reports, you will see a lot of them, not a lot of them. Every condition that we have there is like this. Now, if you understand A is equal to B, you will understand this. Now, A is equal to B is as simple as understanding. A is equal to B. Your A value goes in here in your source value. Your equal to sign goes in your relational operator, and your B value goes in comparison value, which is A is equal to B. Now you can skip the comparison type for now. This is more relevant once we start with reporting, but just understand A is equal to B. Now combining that with this. If I have multiple conditions, here all I write A is equal to B and A is equal to C. If these conditions are true, in an AND logic we have two options, AND and AL. Now, if I have both these logics as A and D, that means A and D, A is equal to B, A is equal to B and A is equal to C, then only wherever I'm using this condition logic to perform a particular action will be triggered. If any of the condition is false, any of the row item is false. For example, A is not equal to C, that means this is false, and wherever this condition logic is used, it will not get triggered. Now if I change my logic from A is equal to B in the first row or A is equal to C in the second row, in that case, if any of them is true, then the particular action will be triggered. Now you have to remember, you have to understand the action is not defined here. You only define the rule or the condition. Wherever you use this rule, that is where the action is defined, which will come later in the sessions. But if you try to understand it with the simplistic way, which is A is equal to B, that's all you need to understand. Now, in this case, we will create a condition logic for countries equal to United States. I'm gonna suffix it with my keyword that I can easily identify this going forward. Country is equal to United States. Now, in this case, my A is country, my B is United States of America, my relational operator is equal to. I'll first pull in the value of A in my source field and try to find country and see what options do I have. Now, since we are working with the compensation eligibility rule, most of the fields that we get these all are existing eligibility rules. Like, you can very well look at the related actions and it will tell you that this is a compensation rule. These are not work to deliver. These are created by the consultants or whoever is practicing in the tenant. Now we have to find the fields. For example, you would see country every field that you have in the system will also talk about what that field is. You will see a sign, a symbol here that defines the type of that field. We'll also talk about what these types are, but an easier way to differentiate because we are scrolling through a big list of eligibility rules. Now to understand where to start looking and when to stop is these symbols. Now, if you see something, a country application, etc., there is this compensation in parentheses. Every field that you see here, most of them will have a compensation here. Now again, these are again some rules. And then, if I scroll down, you would again see different symbols. But these are fields might not be compensation, like primary address country compensation. I'll pick this for now. We don't have to worry about why this one, but let's say this is my A, this is my country value. Now, based on the type of field, my relational operator values will differ slightly. See, and it's not like I said A is equal to B. You will always find equal to here. No. You will find equal to in different format, like exact match with the selection list. That selection list is nothing but your B, which we have not populated yet. If it's a count field, you can use count options. That's what I said in the beginning, that just understand A is equal to B, the logic, the concept, you will be good. Understanding what goes in the source field and how to pick the relational operator might take you a bit of time. And that's absolutely. In this case, I have to pick a value out of a particular list. I'll pick this one, any in the selection list. I'll keep it as is. And this is where you will enter your value B, which is United States of America. United States of America. Now remember, this has to be in the system. It is not one the delivery. You have to create these in the system. Now, or I can use the value that we have created. All these are countries. We created locations. We are using a country field, not location. If you want to use a location field, let's find that. These are the rules. Let's pick this one, location hierarchy. You know what that is? Oh, it's fixed. See, we created this one. I'm using this now. I'm just going to change my name here as location is equal to keep it simple. Let's get this one. Now I've created this eligibility logic. I can use it in my compensation sections now. And wherever I use. If an employer exists in one of these Flixcon America location hierarchy, wherever I'm using this rule, that employer will be eligible for that compensation component. Understanding the creation of eligibility rules is the most important factor in getting to know Workday core compensation. Because every other thing, competition, grades, compensation plans, compensation packages, or any grade profile or plan profiles, all of them are static. There's no deriving factor. The deriving factor is your compensation eligibility rules. Now, just practicing this will give you a confidence that this is how you'll create compensation eligibility rules and not just compensation eligibility rules. Any rule, any condition. Now you have to create ever in the system. You know the logic of A is equal to B. That is how you will do it. Now, there might be multiple rows here. You just have to be careful whether it's an AND or an OR logic. And I'm assuming everyone knows what AND and OR is. If not, I'll just explain it high level. AND is used where all condition will be true. If any one of them is false, your output will be false. If one of is true, then it will work. It will give you the value. Yes, this is what compensation eligibility rules are, and it can be designed in multiple ways. Let me correct my statement. It can be created, or again I'll correct again. Creation and designing remains the same way. The way you see here, it remains the same. The only thing changes is you can also use a condition logic. Like you see, it says source, external field, or a condition rule. Let's say if you already have a condition rule, which is location hierarchy is equal to America. What you can do is, if you want to use that, you can use that here and mark it as equal to yes. Or let's do that. Gonna create, this is benefit. I wanna create a benefit rule. I'm gonna use the rule that we just created. That's also another way of working through this. Location hierarchy is equal to America. Now, this is an eligibility rule. This is not a field. This is a rule. When you talk about rule, the relational operator value changes and gives you these 4 values. Whether it's blank, it's not blank, it's equal to. It's not equal to. I'm going with equal to, and if I enable this, that means location hierarchy America equal to true. And how do we use this? Is the way we read it is if location hierarchy America is equal to true, and wherever this logic is being used, that is where it will take the action. It will trigger the particular action. You can give it a name. Don't forget to use your unique keyword. Always when you are creating anything whatsoever. Now I have created another rule, which is location hierarchy is equal to America. Yes? If this is yes, wherever I want to use it or wherever I'm using. If it is true, it will trigger the action. If it's false, it will not trigger anything. This is the concept of compensation, eligibility, logics, and not just compensation. The structuring, the designing is the same. It's just a play of your source, external field, or your comparison values. That's all. And that's a big game. It takes time. The more you practice, the more you understand it. The more real-time experiences you work with, the more you get to know. And even sometimes, whenever you create a logic, it automatically gives you the one-line statement for it. It says location hierarchy is equal to America, equal to I, which means yes. Sometimes these conditions get complex. You have like 10 of these. Just reading through this sometimes helps. But it's personal preferences. Whichever way it makes easier to understand or comprehend, you should pick that up. Why are you creating this rule? Is it not a word-to-word match? Because the in-location hierarchy created is FlexGun America. But here we have given location, hierarchy is equal to America and within brackets, you have mentioned FlexGun. Can I take it like, this is not word-to-word match, this is just an understanding? But these are two different things. I created this first and then I need to create another thing. If I give it the same name, then how would I identify that this is a condition logic based on a different condition and this is a condition logic based on a different logic? I get that. My question is in your location hierarchy. It was FlexGun America. Because that's the name of the location and argue that we create. Should we not give location hierarchy is equal to FlexGun America? Can we give it either ways? I mean, will it make same sense? You're saying over here. Yes, here we have given. See over there. In this case, our A value is a field. In this case, our A value is a condition rule which already has that field. In this case, we are creating that field and we need to compare it with FlexGun America. Now here we are comparing that FlexGun America is there, but is it true or not? That is the difference. Again, the simplistic thing, going back to the basics, A is equal to B. You need to understand what your A, what your B is. That's the complete game of understanding here. This is at the simplest level. But how about in the day to day? How would you receive, or how do we know what level should we create, or how is our colleague? Which are the things that they would be doing? How do we know, or how does it work on the job? In actual world also, this works the same way. And in most cases, it will be the same way. In some cases, definitely, there might be more roles than just one. There might be more than one roles. That's it. And if you are getting concerned about how we will manage on a day-to-day basis, see, and this is for everyone, not just for you. Just a very, very important point I'm going to add in here is, whenever you start in any organization as a Workday consultant, try to reframe yourself from creating things before exploring it. What I mean by that? Let me explain. That is, if you have joined an organization as a Workday consultant, run reports like if you want to look at compensation eligibility logics. Just run the report compensation eligibility rule. Open a list of compensation eligibility rules. Open 5 or 10 of them. Read through it. Get a sense of understanding how they create it. And then only create your own. Try to follow that, because not only you will create it in a way that, because every company has their own way of doing it, every consultant has their own way of doing it, though there's nothing new you can do here. The complexity is only added up based on how many roles you have or what logics you're using here. That is the only thing. But just understanding that how other consultants have used while working in the organization for some time. Get an understanding, get a sense of where they are and where you are, and then start creating your things. Don't jump into the hurdle of creating things as you start. Definitely, if needed, then create it. No problem, but always explore first. And always, as a good consultant, your first search, if it already exists. If that company has been running the system for about a few years, they would mostly have a lot of these conditional logics created. You might not even need to create. You just and also. Being a good consultant also means that you know things to pick up and how to use them, even if you don't know how to create them. Even if you just know how to use these rules and which rule to use when, that's a very, very good point. Don't worry about how it will be asked at the real time. Real time also will be almost similar. But you need to always be aware of how that organization do it. That's all I would add. Thank you. Any other question anyone has? That was compensation eligibility rules. And this was just an example. We'll create a couple more. Once we'll start with creation of grades and plans. Now we know what elements are. We already discussed that. These are. You can understand these elements. If it gets confusing, is these elements are equivalent to the earning codes in payroll. Payroll understand the language of earning codes. Compensation. Understand the language of compensation elements. And these compensation elements are nothing but earning codes which are used by payroll to understand what this means. We went through this slide, but let's do a quick recap. Grades provide pay range as references. Can skip the second point. Grade profiles allow you to assign a worker to a different compensation range than the default because grade profiles allows you for localization. You can have an accounting manager in Canada and in the US, both using the same job profile but with different salary, different ranges, and different currency, obviously. Grade profiles help you achieve that. Coming back to the last point, the compensation grade can default using eligibility rules. We'll circle back on this once we create more compensation elements, basically more of compensation structure. Activity 2: create a compensation grade and assign it to a job profile. Let's do that. We'll create the first half. We'll create the grade. Assigning it will be a different assignment altogether. Now, creation of grades is very simple. In fact, everything in compensation when it comes to creation is very simple. All you have to do is, whatever you want to create, just write it. You want to create a grade, let's write it. Create compensation grade is your task. It will ask you some values. Just put those values and you're good. Before that, you'll be prompted to enter these values. Let's go about September 1st. Now pay range segments. These are nothing but how many segments you want in your salary. From between minimum to maximum. We want 4 segments, basically 4 divisions. We want 5 segments, 6 segments, or 3 segments. 3, 4, 5, I think is the only values. There's nothing called a 6. 3, 4, 5 is the only number. Let's go about 5, because every time I do 4, let's try 5 now. A standard in most organizations I've seen is segments as 4, because it's like an even distribution. Let's try with 5. Now there's an option here, use grade profiles. Now we know grade profiles allow you for localization. It's always recommended that you use them. If you don't use them, you won't get an option to create grade profiles, which we don't want. We want grade profiles with us. Give it a name. Let's say we give it FlexCon. The compensation you create, whether it's a plan, whether it's a grade, you will always have these default values. And what these default values are what you define here anytime an employee is eligible. Let's say an employee is eligible for this grade, but he or she is in a country which is not added in one of your grade profiles over here. In that case, what they will do for the values of what we put here. In our case, in our scenario, what we have here, we have Canada and US. Let's say someone is hired in Australia. In that case, what? They will default to these values because Australia is not added into your grade profiles. Let's go one step at a time. Base pay elements. These are nothing but your compensation elements which will be printed on your salary slip. That this is your base pay. This is your car allowance. This is your benefits, stipend, etc., etc. We are creating grades. Grade goes with the component of standard base pay. And this is common across every organization that use standard base pay. Though you can create your own standard base pay if you don't want this to be printed on your paychecks. Let me open this. This is what they delivered. And if you see here, it's standard base pay. It consists of base pay and hourly. Once we create grade profiles, we use base pay. Not too complex, just standard items which we use, or I think most of the organizations use who are using Workday compensation. We'll skip the eligibility rule for now because we'll come to that a little later. Currency. Let's keep assuming our office is in US. And frequency would be monthly, I believe. And you can also create a custom frequency. Monthly, biannual, biweekly, daily, hourly. These are something which are worked and delivered, but hourly amen is something faster. If you want to create those, you can create as well. You don't need this. Now coming here. Now, in one of the presentation slides, it was written this fourth point. If grades, let me open this in a bigger screen. It says that if grades will have profiles, the best practice is to set up grades with a default pay range of 0 and establish all possible ranges for that grade in the profile. Now, let's say this management grade that we are creating has to be available across all regions, wherever the company is. Let's say our company is in US, Canada, and Netherlands. What that point is saying that instead of adding a default pay range here, you add all those elements here. Basically add. You only see one raw item here. Add 3 items, one for US, one for Canada, and one for Netherlands. And keep this compensation pay range as 0. Now, this is the case when we are using grade profiles. Let's say you're not using grade profiles all. Let's say, let me run this task again. Grade compensation grade. I'll give it a date. I'm not going to enable this. The difference you will see for yourself. Over here, you don't have a grade profile tab versus you have one here. Let's say if you're gonna, this would be a case where your organization is only located in one area, one country, or one region. In that case, you can define a default pay range for any management grade profile that you want to create. But since we have different salary ranges, we have company based out in multiple regions, multiple countries. We will use grade profiles. And that point is emphasizing on saying that if you're using grade profiles, make sure you cover all regions and keep these default value as 0. Because let's say in future, your organization opens up an office in Australia. Now we don't have Australia in our list. We only have US, Canada and Netherlands. In that case, if you don't add Australia in your grade profile list, Workday will default to this value, which is defined as 000. And anyone doing the hiring will automatically get to know that these values are coming to be 0. Something is not. Workday will not give you an error. Please understand that. Because you are configuring this as a compensation. Admin. And competition admin is a big role, which implies that any configuration that you're doing should be error-free. Workday does not throw error if you have mixed up eligibility rules or your ranges. You will only get to know these when you're doing transaction on a worker. Until then, you won't get any errors. Be very mindful of what you're configuring and not just competition. Anywhere you're doing, any implementation, any configuration you do, you're doing it as an admin. You have that security access. It's expected out of you that you do it correctly because Workday does not throw error on wrong implementation. Workday throws error on wrong transactions which happen because of wrong implementation. And then you have to go back and troubleshoot what happened. And then that takes a lot of time. Always be careful when you're creating things. We're going to keep all these values as 0 and now we're going to add in grade profiles. We're going to give a name FlexCon Management User. You can give a description if you want. You can give the base pay element as base pay. Now over here, since you have to make it specific to US, employees only, you will add the eligibility rule that country is equal to. Now, we are not creating this because it already exists in the system. As a good consultant, you don't duplicate things. But definitely for your practice, you can open this up. And try to replicate this using your unique identifier. This is a test environment. You are free to do that. But in real world, if that condition already exists, just use it. Now, in this case, it says all location compensation is equal to USA. Let's say I don't want this. I want the one that I created. I can create a new eligibility rule. Write my location. And these are location. Here, key is beyond one dot. Location primary, I'll use this. Any in the selection list. And I can give a list of the ones that I created specifically in the US, Boston or California. Now I can definitely add here that location is equal to Boston or California. Both of them are pretty high in salary ranges. We can combine them. And I'm definitely going to use this. Now that I've created one specific to my organization, I can go back and instead of using this, I can use this. The currency would be USD. Frequency would be monthly. And over here you will enter the range. Now you would see something. I decided to pick 5 ranges, 5 segments. You have segment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can make it a 3, you can make it 2. But once you're created, you cannot change it back. Creation of grades, you have to give the number 3, 4 or 5. Now I'll enter my minimum. I think this is for the minimum value. And this is minimum, that one is maximum. I'm gonna add the value here. For minimum, which is based on for US, it's 60,000 to 100,000 to 100,000. Now I don't need to manually calculate these values and enter here. All I have to do is enable this checkbox. Once I do this, all those values will be automatically calculated. You will get a midpoint. You have a minimum and maximum and all the different ranges. The same, you will replicate for another location. Let's pick up Canada now. Web screen management. Canada, you will use the same things. Eligibility rule. Now in this case, since we did not create anything on Canada, we can use the existing one. But that won't be a good practice. We'll definitely go through it. But in real world, if you have one grade profile based on states, like in this case you picked Boston and California, you should follow the same practice for other countries as well. If you are using Canada, then maybe create Toronto, Mississauga, British Columbia. If you are using India, create states like Karnataka, Delhi, Mumbai, etc. But since we don't have those created, we're going to use the existing logic of countries equal to Canada. Always go to related actions and make sure that it's there. The currency would be Canadian. The currency would be monthly. And now to enter the values, just click on the plus sign 50 to 90,000. Enter the values there. Select checkbox. Now you have your grade and your grade profiles created. You created your grade, flexible management grade. Your pay range is default as 0, but your grade profiles has 1 for Canada based on this range. The other one for the US. In the US, you have Boston and California for these ranges. Now anytime you do a hire in Boston, California, you will be eligible. The employer will be eligible for this range. And if someone is being hired in Canada, they'll be eligible for this range. One thing is still missing here, which we'll do tomorrow, not today, is this eligibility rule. Because we did say that this is for management grade, which means that anyone at a managerial position will be eligible for this grade. But we have not yet defined that. We have only defined the localization. We've only defined the regional specifications. We have yet not defined whether the employer is a manager or not. Our expected result is a manager being hired in the organization will be eligible for this grade. A non-manager will not be eligible for this grade. And we'll define that tomorrow in this section by creating a new eligibility rule. That one will be definitely eligible. That's why I'm saying that we'll do it tomorrow. Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel.